Hi, thank you all for being here.
Hi. Oh, now it is working. I want to hear a little bit about how you got to know Sean Baker and how you became involved in this film.
Well, I was in film school, and I went to a screening of Tangerine, and just the movie blew me away. And I talked to Sean after, and just hearing him talk about how he made the movie, this run and gun sort of nature of making the movie on the street with just shooting on iPhones without permits in a lot of cases, getting people's releases, who walked through the frame, who weren't background, they were just random people. That was just such an exciting, so that's what I was looking for. So then I exchanged information, and then a few months later, randomly, I went to a screening of Gaspar Noé's Love in 3D at the Arrow, which was a crazy experience. It was a midnight screening, and at about 3 a.m, we got let out, and I was walking out, and there was Sean and Sam, and I went up to him, was like, hey, do you remember me? And for some reason, Sean did remember me, and he was like, I'm looking for an assistant. So then I started working for him while I was in film school, and then when I graduated, he asked if I would come and work on the Florida project. So then I just worked on the Florida project with these guys, and then he bumped me up to producer for Red Rocket, which was the next film.
So anyone out there who wants to be a producer of an Academy Award nominated film, go to a lot of movies, run into people, chat.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, he gives people opportunities, not just in the cast, with casting first timers and whatnot, but also everybody who works on the films. He really has a good eye for just trying to bring people into his orbit who are going to move in the same direction when we make these movies.
Amazing. And Sam, how about you?
Well, we're married. So usually the way it starts with, he said something like, hey, I was thinking maybe we should do the Russian movie. And I said, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do it. So that was kind of the beginning.
Always my favorite answers. I love it.
Well, they met at the gym, right? Initially, that was
We did. The gym in LA.
Right in LA.
All right, now I need to know more. Were you already working in film? Were you like further introduced to film through him?
Yeah, so up until that time, I had mostly worked in film and television, but studio movies and television, I was an actor. And one day he came up to me and he said, I was on the jury of a film festival and I saw this movie and I thought you might like it. And I said, oh, thanks. And I watched it and I wondered, why is it so grainy? And then little did I know that those types of movies would be where my heart really was. And that was the beginning of my love of independent film and my education in independent film, and I've never looked back.
Love that's awesome. So what was the path to getting the movie made and financed?
We worked with Glenn Basner at Film Nation. We worked on Red Rocket with him, and he was just like, let's grab lunch, and I want to hear what you guys want to do next after we had finished, Red Rocket. And we were a couple months after the release, and the whole process of just finishing the film. And he was like, what is it? So Sean just pitched the idea of Anora. And he was like, great. And he knows Sean, and he knows the type of cast that he usually brings onto these projects. Like, it would be, somebody relatively unknown in the lead role, and then surrounded by people who are not necessarily, big stars per se, at least for this project in particular. That's how he wanted to cast it. So then Glenn just gave us a number, and we were greenlit right there.
So I've worked with Glenn as an international sales agent. You also worked with him as a financier and a producer, well, in the way that a financier is a producer.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. He financed the film fully and sold the film as well.
How great.
It's a very great, simple process, and Glenn is very supportive of us, and since we worked with him on Red Rocket, he knew our tendencies and whatnot and how we like to work, so he really was hands-off and just kind of let us do our thing.
I know you've talked about this a lot along the way. You made this movie for very little money, and that's something that Sean obviously had a lot of experience doing in the past. Can you talk about, specifically on this film, how you went about achieving this incredible, you had so much production value for the amount of money that you had?
Well, one thing that we did have to watch out for was, unlike a lot of the other movies, this movie had very rich people in it.
Yes.
Which means that you have to be able to afford fancy locations and helicopters and huge suites in Vegas and designer clothes, and we still did it the way that we normally do it, which is we asked favors, we begged, borrowed, and stole, not really stole, things to get what we needed to get done to be able to pay for the things that we needed to. There was no compromise in terms of things that we wanted to shoot. Instead, it was more of a compromise of, okay, well, if we need to say one of the things that is really important to us in terms of the process is having as many days as we can.
Yeah.
Making sure that the actors and the crew and everyone has enough time to be able to marinate in the story. If we decide to change things, there's the flexibility with the time. So that's actually one of the things that's the first thing we look at in terms of our budget. These are how many days we would like. Let's add a few here or there just in case. And then the rest of the budget kind of falls from there, I would say.
Yeah, and we just find ways to film time that goes in the budget first, and then we make the movie for the rest. 35 millimeter, 4 perf, anamorphic is how we shot. So that was a big ticket item that had to just go in, because if we were going to try to make room for it, you never will. So if it's just there, then the rest is the rest. They have to pull the movie off for you. Just kind of have that mentality. But we were doing things, getting crafty where we could, like the diner scene. Like that diner was open. It was a 24-hour diner. We couldn't shut it down. We didn't have the money. So they were like, all right, well, you guys can shoot at this half of the diner, but it's going to be open on the other half. So, we're like, great. When we cut a deal with them, it was way cheaper than shutting the whole thing down, because then we'd have to compensate them for the business lost. So, just like finding ways to do that and just being willing and open to do those kinds of things. Yeah.
How did you afford so many extras on your budget? You have, in the club, it's a packed house. How does that work?
I mean, yeah, it's another big cost. Sometimes these things are just, again, you just have to find room for them and find other ways to save. We go to these locations and yes, they would cost a lot more to do it the proper way, but we find ways to kind of save every dollar no one would ever tell you to shoot in a diner that's open, but we did it and it works.
And it fills in the bodies in the deep background that you need.
Sure.
Yeah, well, also something, for instance, that we did with places that were crowded, for instance, the club.
Yeah.
We would have one day and shoot as many different shots as we could over different scenes and things to be able to maximize on the extras that we had, so that we wouldn't have to have as many days with so many extras, things like that.
Right, makes sense.
Amazing. This is going to feel a little bit like speed dating, guys, because we have a lot to get through.
Minute over.
So it's already over, guys. It's already over. Thank you to the nominees of Anora for joining us. Congratulations.